What's going on, people? You are now getting an earful. It's your boy, Ron Ray. Today, we got a special guest in the building, Boston's own Peter Edouard, the founder of Mathmatik Athletics. You might have seen it as MMC before, but now they are Mathmatik Athletics. Peter, welcome. Appreciate you. We've been chopping it up for a little bit in regards to connecting and linking, but definitely appreciate you being on the show. I want you to give your own introduction. I like to have my guests give the introduction versus me, doing all the talking. But one of the things that I totally appreciate about these interviews, my first interview was with Mike Dees, and now you're the second interview, is that I actually have these relationships that I could curate and talk to for back in the day. So, we've known each other for about 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I'll say it's 20,
I think more than 15 years, like 20 years, right? And that's through, the man himself, Chillville. And, I took your family, became my second family at some point during that time. So, definitely some deep ties there. But I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Word, man. First, man, I appreciate you reaching out, and I'm excited to, bless the podcast, man. So thanks for reaching out, man. As you said, we go way back, man, like high school. So This is dope to see you, doing your thing on this platform. So for some of the folks who don't know me and don't know the brand, so my name is Peter Edouard, product designer, fashion designer, creative. Used to do stand-up comedy, but I'm no longer funny. But I know. Used to do stand-up.
What?
Yeah, man. Used to do mad things, man. Me and my cousins used to do skits back when, Instagram wasn't a thing. You know what I mean? This was like pre-Vine. So,
we got to tap into that.
Yeah, man. Just the creative, man. And my whole thing was just like trying to get as many ideas out as possible. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, started Mathmatik. Mathmatik clothing was the first, outlet for me in terms of being able to create, use my art and sell products. So that was in high school. Oh, no, excuse me. That was my freshman year in college. 2006, my mom passed away, and, my mom was someone that was always like a champion of like my art. And, when my mom passed away, I basically was like trying to figure out like, how do I process this? Right. You know what I mean? I'm 19 years old. How do you process this? So, I was like, I just poured everything into like my art. So, 2006, I started Mathmatik Clothing with, Keith from Charleston High. And from then we basically started bringing on our friends and family to the mix. So that was the genesis of Mathmatik Clothing.
We're definitely gonna get into the origin of that, just because it's funny, because when there's stuff that you're giving me right now that I thought I knew and I didn't know, right? And just the origin of mathematics and all that. But let's just go back here. So the comedy, stand-up comedy, the skits, right? So Greg was always a funny guy.
Funny looking guy. No, funny guy.
Greg, if you're watching this, you my guy. I love you, bro. But Greg was always a funny guy, like in terms of he played ball, he cut hair. I remember going down to the going down by Forest Hills, he would cut hair. At the time, I think he had a girl that lived in that area by the gas station or something like that. Ville would say, we used to always like take the bus down there and all that. And I remember the comedy stuff, but I didn't know that this was actual stand-up comedy. So talk to me about that a little bit. So did you ever perform live anywhere in the city? Like, okay, where did you go?
So me, Greg, Phil, and Ville, like, our whole family just like funny as hell, man. Like, so we started doing skits when we were when G ended up moving to Roxbury on 9 Carmel Street. So we had copped the camera, and this was like 2010 or 2010, like 2010. We copped the camera, and we were just doing skits. So obviously Instagram wasn't around, and at that time, we had the clothing company. We had like a release party, 10-10-10, and I think for the most part, a lot of people, were hip to us because of our content that we used to put out. So we were always funny, you know what I'm saying? But 2010, that's when I started doing stand-up comedy. So I ended up going on like some college tours. I did UMass Dartmouth. I did UNH. I did the Comedy Connections. Did a couple of went to New York to do some open mics. So I had always had that bug to do funny shit and want to be a stand-up comic. You feel me?
Fine,
But
yeah.
yeah, I did that for 4.5 years, man. When I moved to
No,
yeah,
no
bro, I did it
idea, bro.
4.5 years. I ended up I moved to California, which we'll talk later. Talk more about. Moved to
Yeah,
Cali and was doing
I remember
stand-up
that. I
over
remember
there.
that. Yep, I remember that. So you hold on. You went to and being in Boston, right? So I always like to tap into this, and then one of the things that this platform, allows me to do is talk about Boston because you and I know we from the city. We've seen gang shit, we've seen the drug selling, we've seen all of that. And it's not to glorify that, but when we talk about cities in the United States and just like the urban areas, the urban neighborhoods, obviously Boston doesn't get recognized for that. But when we come
Mhm.
from the city, we don't need. I live outside of the city now, right? And one of the things that I get all the time is I'll talk to a motherfucker and they'd be like, "Hey, where you from?" I'd be like, "I'm from Boston." First thing they'll say is, "There's black people in Boston."
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? No, not there's black people in Boston. There's black people like you in Boston.
Yeah.
So I want to tap into that. If somebody asks you, what part of Boston are you from? What
Yeah.
would you say?
Man, that's tough, man, because for one, I always, I was born in Miami,
Mm-hmm.
and my first neighborhood, so my mom moved us up here, I believe 1998 or 1999. So that first neighborhood that I resided in was Jamaica Plain. So that's where, you know, my formative years, right? That's where I met some of my childhood friends now, friends that I'm still kicking it with now. So it's like JP was my first neighborhood, and then my high school years was in Mattapan. So and
Mm.
I live in Dorchester now, so I'm kind of like all over the place. So I can't really just pinpoint one neighborhood and be like, no, I'm from
I'm from here.
Mattapan. But I
Yeah,
mean, I guess I could say, yeah, I'm from Mattapan.
one of my good friends, my man Tambo, who owns Bread. So Tan's been a Mattapan baby his entire life. So similar to you, I moved. So I was born in Brooklyn. I moved. I lived in Florida, Naples, Florida, from like 92 to 98, so like 5 years. And I moved to Boston like 98, like 97, 98, one of those years, right? But when I moved to Boston, I got dropped into Mattapan, right on Coming Sideway. That's where I met Vil.
Yep.
I remember coming, funny story, right? So I remember coming from Florida. And this is where I didn't know what the word nigga meant. I didn't know, just because I was really sheltered, like, nah, true
Yeah.
story, right? I didn't know what the word nigga meant. I didn't know hip hop music like that because I was coming from a Haitian church background. Like my aunt and my grandmother didn't let me go outside, nothing like that, right? So I remember coming to Boston, and I remember my brother Ronald. We called him back in the day. He was Diddy, but now he can't be Diddy no more just because of everything
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
going on. But you know what I'm talking
Freak
about, right? You know
offs. Yeah,
Diddy,
yeah, yeah.
right? So, so obviously, Vil and Diddy had a relationship, right? Or Ronald, they're still Diddy in my opinion, bro. So
Yeah.
if you hear this, I apologize. You know what I mean? But they had the relationship. So Wookie, Diddy, all of those guys, they had the relationships. When I came in, I remember Vil coming upstairs to the apartment in Fairlawn. I remember Vil coming upstairs, and Vil's like, he asked my dad, he was like, "Yo, could he come outside with us?" And then Vil looked at what I was wearing. He was just like, "You wearing some bell bottoms? Nah, you can't come outside with us."
Oh shit. Oh shit, son.
So,
That's crazy.
so that was my introduction to I being in the city, like being in a true city. And then that was also my introduction to you got to be somewhat fashionable, or at least somewhat decent to
100%.
hang out with the guys. You feel me? So I had on some bell bottoms. They had like some white stripes coming down. Nasty
Yeah.
work.
Damn, son, that's crazy. Speaking of Philly, man, Philly was probably like the flyest dude like
Ever.
ever, man. Like, for context, Philly's my cousin, so yeah, what I
Yeah.
mean, like, even if he wasn't my cousin, he's still like the flyest dude.
Yeah.
I used to take some of his gear, man. So Phil used to have like like we used to go to Philly's crib to pillage
Yeah.
gear. Like
Yeah.
Vil was that dude. He had all the jerseys. I
Yep.
remember he had the
Orlando
um
Magic.
well I don't remember that one, but Vil, I remember the one that I took from him. It was a Milwaukee Bucks Ray Allen like
Yeah, I
throwback
remember that one.
jersey.
I remember that one.
So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. But yeah,
Nah,
yeah, man.
but that's the origin, right? Those are the origin stories that people don't really know about because Ville's your cousin, and Ville's family to me like always will be. No matter how how often we talk, whatever, like that's always family, right? So when getting introduced to that crew, and when Ville lived on Tennis Road, you know what I'm saying, I would go to the crib too, and then his brothers, his sisters were there, everybody was there, you know what I mean? Tom was there, his mom, and like we'll go through, and I'd be like, all right. But he was always taller than me, and I couldn't steal nothing from him. You feel me?
Yeah.
So I couldn't steal nothing from him. But we used to always go shopping or try to go shopping. Like, I don't know if I should talk about this, but I don't know if statutes of limitations is there. But I remember one time we had the Sean John suits, right? Remember when Sean John came out with the shiny,
Yep.
like the
Velour.
velvet suits, the velour
Yep.
suits? Yeah,
Velour. Yeah.
exactly, right? Dog, I can't even talk about that on camera. We talk about that
All
off camera. But
right.
just
Yeah.
understand. Everybody in Fairlawn Estates had a suit. And that's because of me and my man Chillville. That's a fact. Everybody in
Shout
Fairlawn
out,
Estates
shout
had
out
a
to Vil,
suit.
man. Shout out to Vil, man.
No, that's a fact. All right. So Dorchester, JP, you and I have similar like backgrounds because I moved to Roslindale years after living in Mattapan. So like that Roslindale JP area is something that I've been around for a minute. So what high school you went to Southie? I mean, no, not Southie. You went to Seatown, right?
I went to Charlestown.
Yo, man, it's crazy because I went to Southie and I didn't even know what Southie was. I went to Southie by accident. I was supposed to go to High Park High just because I lived in Mattapan and Bill and them went to live there and went there as well. My brother went there.
Yeah.
What was Charlestown like? Because I felt like Charlestown was, if you didn't go there, the allure of Charlestown was like the allure. You guys had all the bitches, right? You guys
Facts.
had all the girls. Trust me, I know you and I know. You know what I
Facts. Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. We had that conversation.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Shout out to the old ones. Shout out to the old youngins back in the day. You and I had all the girls. I'm not you and I, but y'all had all the girls,
Hey,
right?
I didn't have all the
Yo, you
girls.
like
A very fan, son. Come on, son.
my bad, my bad, my bad. But
Fuck it.
Seatown had all the girls, and then at one point, you guys ran, high school basketball for the city of Boston. Matter of fact, for the state, because you
Yeah,
guys won the state
definitely for the state.
championships. You guys won city championships. Jack was, y'all dude, and
Well,
and
Jack
just
O'Brien.
Jack O'Brien. Jack was that dude for y'all, and y'all ran like at least for the numbers of years. How was it like to be at Seatown for 4 years, graduate and all that? How was it like? Or did you
Yo,
graduate from Seatown?
yeah. I graduated from Charlestown.
Okay.
So the legend of Charlestown is what got me to Charlestown, right? Because it's like in in middle school, you're like, yo, where am I to go? I want to play ball. I want to get a scholarship. I want to do all of that. And the first thing that I heard about was like Charlestown High School. Although when I was in middle school, I used to frequent English High. So English was also like a dope school. They had a dope program with Coach Rob.
Yep.
But I was like, dog, I want to go to Charlestown. And
Greg and them went to English, right?
nah. We all hooped there, but G went to Madison.
G went to
So
Madison?
G went to Madison. Phil
Phil
went
went to
to
Charlestown.
Charlestown. Yeah,
Yeah.
he went to Charlestown with me. And going to Charlestown was like, yo, oh, you a hooper. So you going like folks went there to hoop. That was it. You know what I'm saying? So going there, obviously, I thought I was nice. The coach thought otherwise. I didn't make the team. I didn't get a chance to like see it. I wasn't on the team, so I got to see it from the stands or whatever. But just experiencing like that, the games, like the vibe, like how, you know, the ball players used to walk around with so much clout in the city because they had the jackets and all of that, which I feel
Mm-hmm.
like definitely inspired what I'm doing now
Yeah.
because, you know, I got into designing high school merch. So I used to go to all the games and, you know what I mean? Like you always wanted a varsity jacket because the dopest
Fire.
thing. You know what I mean? You get to see like, you know, you get free like you get free stuff, right? It was basically like a pass, right? Where if you had a jacket, like a championship jacket, like, all right, cool, you in the store, they like let you slide or whatever. You get on a bus, you ain't even got to pay, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, y'all had the allure, man. Being at Southie, you guys were our rivals in basketball. I mean, it can't be a rival when we're getting smacked around, you know what I mean, every fucking time, right? So, anytime we played C-Town, like, that was it. And I remember, like, I made the basketball teams, JV and varsity, just because I think of my grades, not because I was good. I just made it because of grades.
Right.
And Coach Lockney, who's now the coach of BC High, was the coach of BC High at the time, he was my gym teacher. So he would always used to see me trying to play ball and all that. So he kind of took a favor to me and allowed me to come on the team. One of the things I remember is anytime we played C-Town, I would make sure I was fresh as hell that day because I knew when the game was over, I had to hop on that bus and
Yeah.
I had to be around all of that. You know what I mean? And I remember seeing y'all when I be at Forest Hills, I'd be like, yo, these dudes think they're ill, man. They're not that ill.
Now we was nice. We was nice.
I know, but I was hating on the low. And, a couple of my boys like transferred that we played ball with at Southie. They transferred to C-Town or they transferred to Eastie because Eastie was another
Yeah,
school.
EC was a powerhouse too.
Was a powerhouse too. So like, and that no longer exists in a city, right? So there's no more Is Charlestown still exist?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think Charlestown might be one of the only schools because Southie stopped existing like a long time ago. The building is still there, but the actual school of South Boston High no longer exists, and I think that's a lot of that for all the schools within the city. So that's C-Town. I love that, man. So you never played ball for C-Town, but you went there. Eventually, you did clothing for them. We could get into that. You did the athletic apparel for them and all that. You had the contracts with the school. Let's dive into the origins of Mathmatik clothing. I know that at one point you had a partner, right? Don't want to ruffle any feathers, but it's always good to hear the origin of the story because later down the line, you transition to Mathmatik athletics, which is completely different from Mathmatik clothing. So you tell the story however you want to tell it. I may ask some questions in between, but tell the story how you want to tell it.
Yeah. So we started Mathmatik clothing 2006. As I said, my freshman year, my mom passed away, and I had moved back to Florida. So I'm living in Florida, trying to figure it out, trying to process things, and before that, I actually had a clothing company that I was about to launch before that never saw the light of day, called Afro Can. The logo was
What
supposed
is
to
it called? What was
be
it called?
Afro Can.
You got you
I
still
mean,
got the logo?
I lost the notebook, but that didn't see the light of day. So, anyways, Keith had reached out to me and was like, "Yo, we should start a clothing company," and that was the whole conception of the brand. And from there, we were trying to figure out the naming of what we were going to like put it out, like arithmetic or whatever. But we ended up coming up with the name Mathmatik. I know for myself, I liked how Mathmatik had connections to hip hop. So a lot of the references around Mathmatik comes from like especially in the context of hip hop, came from like the 5% philosophy. So
Okay.
that's what I based Mathmatik off of. So when I think about Mathmatik, when I think about the name, the origin, it's
Mm-hmm.
in that space, it's in that hip hop context. So all the principles of of like the 5% of philosophy, like that was my, you know, my foundation. So we started that, had the name, and then you know, I designed the logo. At first, we had another logo. We had an Einstein logo. I forget the brother's name who designed it for us, but that was like our mascot. And then when I came up with the logo for that, like the logo that we had on a lot of the merch,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have that luxury type aesthetic. So I pulled the Maybach logo.
Hello, Rick Ross. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Rick Ross
not
shit, right?
no. Maybach Mercedes
The
Benz.
the Mercedes Benz. Okay, got you.
I started it from there. So, you know, my whole background was like, you know, I was inspired by, you know, hip hop, streetwear, and also I used to do security at New Balance. So from 2008 to 2012, a lot of my education came from just working security, asking questions, like to everybody, like the marketing
Got you.
people,
Got you.
the retail people. So a lot of my game came from just like picking other people's brains that worked at New Balance. So that was my education from there.
So now, talk to me like an idiot, because I see this right in front of my eyes, but I'm kind of blind to it because I'm in my own world, in my own space, right? So like 2000, 2006, all of that, I remember that, right? I remember coming through the late like 2012-ish, 2013-ish. Remember you guys had you guys had everybody rocking the Malcolm X logo with the Raider, you know, with the Raiders on. I think I still got my sweatshirt that I copped from you guys a long time
Yeah.
ago, and I still got one of my favorite pictures in front of my red BMW, and I just got it from Greg. Greg dropped it off
Yeah.
for me, and you know I have it. And then you guys had uh, a a commercial with an artist, with a few different artists rocking your jersey, the baseball jersey that looked like the LA Dodgers jersey. How did those things come into play? And how did the Malcolm X
Yeah.
logo? For those who don't see it, I'll bring it up and I'll get that from you, Peter, if you still got it, so I can
Yeah.
show the audience what that really looks like. So how did that come into play?
Some of my mentors, you know, Tupac Shakur, Malcolm X, and Jay-Z. So Malcolm X was someone that I always like, you know, gravitated towards just because of his upbringing and how he was able to like literally like he was like self-made, right? So, and also my middle school was where I went to to the Lewis Middle School. So his house where he grew up was like right there on Dale Street. So I was like, yo, I want to be able to like pay homage to Malcolm. So I created the Malcolm X Raiders type logo, and I used the Raiders because if you remember back in like the early '90s, NWA used to be synonymous
Yep.
for like, you know,
Yep.
rocking Oakland gear, and I wanted to have that same effect where it's like, yeah, I mean, like they were basically like considered like the outlaws, right, of the league. And then with the hip hop context with NWA, I used that to like, you know, merge the Raiders, Malcolm, and created like that whole design. So once I was able to do that, since it already had a story, it caught fire, man. And yeah, and the rest was history, bro. I think that was probably like our first like successful
Campaign. Like it
item.
took, I will say this, man. I remember, and it's funny because, you know, when you're from the city, anything that's really popping in the city, anything that's really like taking off, it's hard for nobody not to know, right?
Yeah,
And the fact that I had dudes asking like, "Yo, where I get those sweatshirts?" And I'm like, "Yo, I could call my peoples right now. Like, that's easy. That's easy work. You know what I mean?" And I'll being able to tap in with you guys, like, "Yo, I got a dude that want a sweatshirt, or I wanted one directly." That was kind of cool to see that. And knowing you guys were doing it, and it always felt like, you know, you have your organ, you have your story, but from a person like me that's looking at it from afar, but have like kind of bird's eye view on it. It was dope to see the growth of that, and just how like you guys were just booming. And like I always used to see you, G, and Phil collectively together.
yeah.
I never met your business partner, your old business partner. So I don't know who he is by any means.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to ask, obviously you're now Mathmatic Athletics, and correct me if I'm wrong now. It appears that MMC, Mathmatic Clothing, is still doing similar things. Like I was just online the other day, I seen on Facebook basketball shorts and jerseys
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So is that still a brand that is still, you know, uh, that is still operating as its own entity, completely different from you? How does that work?
Yeah. So just to give a little context, in I've never like publicly gone out and said like anything about, Mathmatic clothing and you know what I mean? So again, like I started Mathmatic clothing with my old business partner, and the whole objective was really to like make sure we had a opportunity to like, have extensions of the brand, right?
Got you.
So, Mathmatic clothing was just like the streetwear, right? We did all of like we could, venture off and do any type of things that had to do with streetwear. And then 2013, I ended up working with Brighton High School. So that was the first time that I was like, oh, snap, I could then change my business model. So I had pivoted in because Mathmatic clothing was B2C,
Yep.
business to consumer. And
Yep.
then with
Yep. Yep.
Mathmatic athletics, it allowed
It's
for us to
B2B.
get B2B. So I ended up taking on that whole department with Mathmatic athletics. And again, like that is entirely separate from Mathmatic clothing. So
Got you.
again, we had some disagreements and stuff as most people do. And when it came to like, continuing with the business relationship, I just figured that it made sense just to like separate and keep things, to the left or whatever. So in terms of Mathmatic clothing and Mathmatic athletics, those are two different companies. You know what I mean?
I'm in a I have my own business that we're trying to, we've been building over the last 3 years, right? And I question for you, because you've been doing this for the last 10 years or so. What advice would you give to any young entrepreneur that is in a partnership, that if you do have a disagreement, what have you learned from those things? Because partnerships, relationships are vital to anything that we do from a success standpoint, whether that's family, friends, business, all of the above. Now, a partnership doesn't necessarily have to have our friendship label tied to it, but the loyalty, respect, and having trust with that
Right.
partner is all those things, right? And I think I'm learning that right now where, in my business ventures, my partnership with Clairvaux is, we bridge. I lean on him from a trust perspective on areas and expertise that I don't have, right? What advice would you give to young entrepreneurs that may come into that process where they may headbutt? Because you've obviously partnered with new partnerships as you continue to grow MMA. What advice would you give?
Yeah. I mean, I think for the most part, man, like, you know, whenever we go into a situation, like we never think about what if it doesn't work out?
Mm-hmm.
Like we never think about that. Even with marriage, right? Where it's like you go into marriage, you're like, oh yeah, it's gonna be roses, sunny skies, and all of that. But sometimes that's not the case, man. And I think, having an action plan as to like, hey, what happens if we can't agree on something? What happens
Got
then?
you.
You know what I mean?
Got
So
you.
how do we mitigate this? So I feel like, any entrepreneur who's, you know, going into a situation with a partner, um, it's important to establish like that process of, hey, this is what we do when we cannot come to an agreement. Um,
Yep.
and then whatever those terms are, like y'all agree to it. Bring in a mediator or whatever. You know what I mean? But establishing an action plan when things go wrong before they go wrong. That way, y'all have a guideline. Y'all already have something
Got you.
already written.
Got you. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it sounds like you have a safety valve that you guys could refer to and defer to, that
Yeah,
if the partnership is starting to if this partnership is starting to become volatile, you have that outlet to always kind of come back to like um your business objectives and kind of keep everything straight and narrow. You mentioned something. You said that you're married, or like, well, you didn't say that, but you are
Yeah.
married. So, how has marriage and your partnership with your wife, how has that either helped your current situation, or has it detracted from your current situation?
Yeah. So I met my wife 10 years ago.
Okay,
Um
a
20.
C
Yeah.
town.
No, so I met my wife at a I met my wife at a gala, at an Ebony gala. And
Mm.
I had just started, this was like my second year with Mathmatic Athletics. And it's funny because when she met me, she had already known about me through a mutual friend. And, I'm so like future minded. I'm always thinking in the future, right? So I met her at the end of the night. So when she asked me, she's like, yo, where do you work at? She's like, what do you do for work? She already knew I had the clothing company or whatever.
Right,
So again, to give context, right? I was never full time with Mathmatic. You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
it was
Yep.
always like a part-time thing. I always had like a job or whatever. Like I said, I used to work security. So at that time I worked security at this like data center or whatever. And then I also used to work at Super Shuttle. Like these are like, dead
Yeah,
end
yeah, yeah.
jobs, right? These are like
Mm-hmm.
$12, $13 an hour jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So I had those two jobs that I was working. And I also had a shared office space this was pre WeWork. So I had an office space in downtown, right?
Or you was
So
rotten.
yeah. So when she asked me where do I work, I said downtown. So she was like, oh snap, are you working downtown? I'm like, okay, State Street? Okay. So that's where my shared office was at.
Right. For mathematics in general.
Yeah, this was
No,
like the
hold on.
mathematic.
You were paying 10 years ago for commercial office space? Wait,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
30, we're 30, we're 35, 36, 37-ish. So at 26, you was paying for commercial office
Shit,
space?
yeah, bro. Yeah. Let me give context. It wasn't like market rent.
No,
It was like,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
You were paying for the whole point is that at 26 years old, you had your own office space that you was paying
yeah,
commercial.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
It was like I was paying like $250 a month. It wasn't crazy. I had
Yeah.
access to the space. I had
Yeah.
I had 24-hour access. I really had like 9 to 5, but
Got you.
I never gave the card back. I never gave the access card back. So,
Sure.
after 5 or on the weekends, my card would still work. So
You
my
go in
office,
there.
my office space was available to me on the weekend. So yeah, I spent a lot of my time there. And this was like, I'm giving you the story. Like, you should do a great job of editing this because I'm giving you like, oh, this is 2014, 2013. But
Nah,
anyways,
nah, we gonna keep it the way it is. Just
uh,
because that matters. We're gonna keep it the way it is because that within itself. So you met your wife 10 years ago. Um during like the startup of mathematic
mathematic athletics. Yeah,
athletics. Because
she met
mathematic
me.
clothing was already established, right?
Yeah, mathematic clothing was already established, but I was already on my way out of
Of
mathematic
the
clothing.
clothing part.
Right, right.
So so you met your wife then. And how long you guys been together?
So we've been together for 10 years. So going
So
on
you
11 next year.
going on 11. But you recently
So
just married, right? Like five
yeah,
years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So I didn't forget
timeline.
I didn't forget the question. You said like how has that been?
Yes, 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 yeah, yeah.
So when we first met, as I said, she asked me, yo, where do you work at? And I'm like downtown. And then as she later found out, like, hold on, are you work security? Like, not saying like she didn't say it like that. It
Yep.
was just like, oh, you work security. Well, okay. So you don't work downtown. Like you know what I mean?
Right.
Because I used to work overnight and all of that. So after
Yeah,
overnight,
yeah,
I go to the office space sleep, and then, do work. But anyways, she started asking questions that just like it penetrated my soul. You know what I'm saying? So it was like those questions were okay, do you have a business plan?
Got you.
Like,
It's it's funny, right? I know that feeling. I'm not married, but I know that feeling when you have somebody that's asking questions that's making you think outside the box, because or making you think about, do you really got something going on, or
right.
do you really have, you know, the manpower or the foundation built to really achieve what you're trying to achieve. So that's powerful within itself. So she kind of put the battery in your back a little bit, would you
Yeah,
say?
100%. Because it's like she's asking questions like, can I be with this person?
Got you.
Does this person have like enough grit? Do they have the hustle? Like, yeah, because again, it's like, yo, you don't want to reach down and try to. Not saying like, I feel like I've seen this shit a lot and heard this a lot on social media when they're like, some folks when they're talking about dating, like, yo, oh, this person has to make six figures or they gotta have XYZ and all of that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
and again, it's like, you like everyone has like their own set standards and stuff, right? And for me, when I heard like when she asked those questions, I then took inventory of like everything around me, myself, where I'm like, damn, like I don't have a business plan. Mm, And that, I didn't complete my degree, like all these things. I'm like, yo, like, am I just taught?
Are you false advertising?
Am I false advertisement? Because again, like even on social media, shit look beautiful. You could go on my social media from like 10 years ago, right? Where I had just came back from California. I'm literally sleeping on my sister's futon, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is like where like I'm sleeping on my sister's futon. I had nothing, bro. So it's like when it came to that, I'm like, damn, like, yo, this is my current situation, bro. I'm working overnight security. I got an office spot in downtown that I'm also sleeping in. You know what I'm saying? So it's like on social media, shit look nice though.
Got you. Yeah.
You know what I'm
It,
saying?
it's crazy, right? And I could be a victim of this as well. Like, and I think you and I could relate to this. From the outside, we could have tremendous success. Somebody looking at this platform and be like, oh, they're doing a podcast, they got nice backgrounds, whatever, whatever. But when you're actually in the trenches of it and you're going through the day to day of it, and you have the people around you and they're the ones that really know, it's funny how the perception of social media can really change the narrative of what somebody is doing, and they don't necessarily know what somebody is not doing. And it
Mhm.
takes those individuals like your wife, to kind of put things into perspective of what you should be doing. And those influences, could make or break. And that's why they say, you are the company you keep, right? Because
Yeah,
if you keep mofos that's not necessarily helping you to get better, then you're always going to stay stagnant and going to and just stay plateau in regards to what you're trying to achieve. And
yeah,
it's kind of dope to hear that from that
yeah.
perspective.
So long
Uh,
story short, when I met my wife, having that conversation, it definitely opened up like my mind, and then at the same time, it made me like realize, all right, yo, what am I, what am I doing? Who's in my life that's like helping me move forward? What's holding me back? And then I had to like cut whatever that was holding me back, even if it was myself or my habits. You know what I'm saying? And then to like really like put put forth energy into getting me to where I wanted to be. You know what I mean? So like I think that's what I got from like my relationship with my wife and all of that. So, she's a perfect piece to what I needed, you know what I mean? And that's what I think that's what made me like really take my shit serious, because now it's like I'm bringing someone else on board of my life and all of that. So she is a part of the business. She does a lot of the logistics stuff, a lot of the stuff that I find, you know,
Tedious.
tedious, boring, and all. But
Yeah,
we're a perfect team, man, and I'm excited for what we got coming up. And yeah, man.
that's what's up, man. Yeah, shout out to wifey. I want to transition here in this. I want to go into like hood politics a little bit. So you guys have, and correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't know if you have done this directly, if it's Mathmatic Athletics or Mathmatic Clothing, but there's been basketball tournaments within the hood of the inner city of Boston.
Mhm.
Were you part of that in designing the jerseys and getting the leagues together and the tournaments together?
Yeah. First off, shout out to Crew Love. Shout out to all them guys
Yeah,
over there.
yeah. So
As I said,
Crew Love is completely separate from you, correct?
yeah, right now, yeah. So Crew Love, that's what with the fam, that's with G, to Drew, that's with Fat Boy and the rest
Mm-hmm.
of the guys. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, when I was still in the mix with Mathmatic Clothing, we partnered with Growth for Life. We came together. Growth for Life used to throw the craziest parties. I remember when I was in Los Angeles, and I had missed I forget it was a pool party. This was the only reason why I got in shape. It's the only reason why I made sure I was doing 2-a-days. I was like, yo, I can't miss this pool party. But anyways, they threw one of the craziest pool parties, and at that time, we had a lot of buzz in the college scene. We were doing college tours and all of that, but we weren't getting the type of crowds that B4L was doing. So we ended up partnering up with them to do Crew Love. The first year, we had like a good numbers and stuff. We had T-shirts, and at that time, as I said, I had started doing the athletic
Mm-hmm.
space, the athletic
Mm-hmm.
wear. I came in with the idea of doing jerseys. Now now people paying, you know what I'm saying, to get their jerseys and all of that. So it elevated the basketball tournaments, because at that time I think folks were just doing T-shirts and yeah, just T-shirts. So yeah.
Would you ever do a I don't know if BNBL is still around. Would you ever partner if BNBL is still around? Would you ever partner with them and try to get actual jerseys for that league? Because that was a prestige league within the city, where coaches from around the city could get 5 to 10 players on a squad and go to sign up and bring their squads together and go through. I know Charlestown, East Boston brought their basketball teams together and played throughout the summer. You know what I mean? But would you ever, if BNBL, I don't know if it's still around, if BNBL did present an opportunity, would you ever consider that?
So I don't want to speak on it too much, because we have some partnerships for 2025 that will once everything is like, the ink is dry and all of that, we'll be able to like speak to that openly. But yeah, there's this, like I said, man, there's a lot of opportunity um like happening next year. So even like this past year, excuse me, this year we did the neighborhood collection. We did the
Yeah.
good in every hood,
Yep.
and we wanted to reach out to BNBL to incorporate them in this whole story of basketball community and all of that. So we'll speak more on that next year. So yeah.
Got you. Got you. It's crazy because we're about like 47 minutes into this interview, and it feels like we haven't even dived
I know.
into MMA, right? And I guess we could segue into that because there's a good segue here. So, and I'll give you my origin story of like like seeing your campaign for Get in Every Hood, right? So I'm talking to Mike Dees, and he was telling me about a back and forth he had with your old business partner. I had said, yo, I need a Mattapan short. Like, I'm from Mattapan. I needed some shorts, right? And I remember being on a FaceTime call with Mike, and Mike's like, nah, I'm not really supporting that because, I got into a back and forth with whatever. I'm like, what do you mean? You got back and forth with my man, like, with Peter? Like, that don't make any sense because Peter's one of the most, humble, like, just down to earth dudes. I feel like, if there's a back and forth, then something must have went awry for that to even to happen. Because I know Peter personally. He's just like, nah, da da da. I bet. So when I reached out to you to cop a pair, and the shorts came through, I probably rocked those for like a week straight. I went to Paris with them joints. I was rocking them joints. Like it had Mathmatik on there. Super proud. I had the Celtics color. Celtics just won the championship, so it made it easy for me to rock, during the summer. I want to dive into that neighborhood watch party. Celtics just won a championship. You now have the shorts. The jerseys are out. You're catering to every neighborhood. So if you're from the South End, South Boston, Mattapan, Hyde Park, Rossi, Dorchester, Roxbury, you could literally put on a pair of shorts and rep your inner city hood through you guys.
Yep.
How did that even come into, like, what made you think, like, all right, well, let me have a campaign that caters to the inner city of Boston and cater to the neighborhoods of Boston?
I'm a storyteller, man. I love stories, and we had this conversation the other day, bro. Like, when it comes to selling product, man, like I feel like it needs a story. Like, as some folks kind of like started to peep game, I started to fall back on a lot of. I started to fall back on how people like put shit out. Right? I was like, yo, I want to just have the story lead with that, and then have the product, eventually gets sold. But the whole premise of Good in Every Hood really comes from, growing up in Boston and understanding the street politics of, like, I don't gang bang, I don't do none of that growing up.
Yep.
I'm a hooper. And
Yep.
the whole thing is like, yo, if you're nice in your hood, in your community center, that's a stamp for you to be able to go to another hood.
Gotcha.
Like, you know what I mean? And I think being BL allowed us to form relationships with people from different areas. Where if you play somebody from Mission, right, and you're from Mattapan, like, all right, cool. We had a competitive game. Now I'm kind of cool with you. I know you now. I know you through
Yep.
basketball.
Yep.
Yo, come to my neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? So now that's how I was able to form friendships, right? So it's like that Good in Every Hood was that was like my upbringing. That was like my rites of passage. If you were nice enough, people were like, yo, pull up to the
Yeah,
rack,
that's
or pull
right.
up to the Tobin. And that
Yep.
was the whole premise. So I wanted to like lead with that. That's why when you see our campaign, you see, folks like Aunt Gurley, you see Sticks, you see Kev Nunez, you know what I mean? Like, those are folks who are stamped, right? Like, all professional ball players, right? And they can go anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
what's
How do you get Shabazz Napier to campaign for y'all?
yo, we
Have you reached out to Shabazz?
I haven't reached out to him, but that would be dope, man. I feel like we have a good brand, and again, like, we're literally in every hood. You know what I'm saying? So we want to be able to highlight folks from each neighborhood. And shout out to Shay Petty. I know Shay's from Mission, so
Yeah.
she was the person that really sparked this whole thing. She was the face of the whole campaign. We were supposed to
Yep.
do
I
a
seen the
commercial
commercials.
with
Yep.
her. So, but yeah, that's where it came from, man. It's just like, you know, basketball, the friendships that we make, and where basketball can take us. You know what I mean? Whether it be from your like out of your neighborhood to overseas to a professional job as a trainer, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that's where it came from.
Nah, man. I that campaign is, I know from a kid that grew up in the city, and that took the 28 all the way from Mattapan to Roxbury to go to Village Crib that was on Cheney Street, and having uh you know playing BMBL at the Madison, playing BMBL at Madison, Tobin, Mattahunt, Washington Park. You know what I mean? Those outdoor leagues. You know what I'm saying? And seeing guys that played in high school basketball being part of your campaign and stuff like that, that's super dope. And just because, there is, and I think in every community within the United States that has an urban Black community, there is that the hood violence that we see on a day-to-day basis. I just like you, I didn't grow up a gangbanger, but I definitely was affiliated and tied to some of that street shit just because of the neighborhood I grew up in, the basketball I played basketball at Alma Park. So, there was ties to that park from a gang perspective that had rivalry with another park across the street. You know what I mean? So like, just to see that campaign at the age of, I'll be 37 in a few weeks, but to see that campaign flourish, and really transcend and really, bring the camaraderie between neighborhoods from a sports perspective, right? Is super dope. And I think, that's what being an athlete and being somebody that's in sports, whether you write about sports, whether you played, you played the sport directly, or, you're just a fan of it, you could talk and share and collectively come together based on those premises, right? Because we also live in a city, or we lived in a city that could be super racist at times, right?
Yeah.
And not give us the opportunities that some of the cities, like, I live in a DMV, so to see the Black community down here and how they collectively get together and the Black excellence that they have down here is super dope. And to see that transitioning its way up to Boston finally and getting some of our voices heard is amazing. But when you have teams like the Boston Celtics, when you have teams like the New England Patriots, you have teams like the Boston Red Sox, the Boston Bruins, we're a very, pro sports city, but those are the things that bring the city together collectively, at least for a day or two, that eliminates some of the racial tensions between, the inner city and the general city of the city of Boston. So that campaign is dope. I definitely want to tap into that. And I think we need a part 2 segment because there's a lot of ventures that we have not even tapped into in terms of the promotional, the watch parties and stuff like that. We do have a few minutes, but you could dive into that. But to see what you've done over the last 10 years and hear this story, like I'm like, damn, I need more, man. I need more. So we definitely have to
Thank
have
you,
a part
bro.
2 of this, man.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, man, like like I said, man, going back to my mom, bro, like that's the thing that really has kept me going, man. Like I still want to make her proud, bro, even though she's not here. So, you know, we've all lost people, right? And what I'm doing is like keeping her memory alive. So, she's with me, every level of success. Like, I wanted to do sneakers, man, when I was 12, 13. My mom, took me to a event help, right, when I was, I think in the 7th or 8th grade. And she was really trying to like pitch my ideas to these 2 white guys, right? My mom had a thick Haitian accent. She's in the room speaking on my behalf. So, and again, like recently, like I was at Reebok. We got a situation with Reebok, and
We didn't even tap into that yet.
yeah, bro, we got a lot, man, a lot to talk about, a lot of success, and yeah, bro, like it's full circle, man. So I'm excited, man.
One of the illest things to me, to be honest with you, that you've done is partnering up with Boston Public Schools to make their jerseys. I remember when I seen that, that's when you was, in my opinion, goated. Because I'm just like,
Oh,
yo,
man, I
and me
appreciate that, dog.
personally, if I'm being honest, right, that's when I said, yo, he's different because, I seen the elevation and just, we had a conversation a few days ago in regards to this podcast and how we're gonna do it and what you're trying to do. To hear that, and I call my man, I'm like, yo, this nigga got a wealth of knowledge that, we definitely want to tap into, or at least, see it from afar so that we could piggyback off of it and stuff like that. But like I said, when I seen the jerseys in the city, Burke, Charlestown, all of that, I said, oh, he's stamped, he's goated. Like, cause
no, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about it.
That's goated to me.
Hey, yo, clip our schedule. No, sir.
that's golden to me, and because here's the reason why. Because it could have, and this is, I have no racist bone in my body. My daughter's half white, right? But it could have been a white boy doing that. But it was a Haitian dude
Yeah.
from the city to go to the schools and be like, yo, and to give back to the community and say, yo, here's what I could do, and how can we partner up and
Yeah.
grow the brand. And to me, that to me is probably one of the biggest things. If I were to talk about your legacy from the city of Boston perspective, is
Yeah.
to me one of the bigger ones.
Yeah. So yeah, let's definitely like chop on that a little bit. So when I was mentioning Ville, again, Ville, I feel like I've been I've been able to pick from, you know, different people and stuff, like pick things that I'm like, oh, so I could take that from this. So like Ville was literally like the fashion icon of our family at that time, right? Because again, I think Ville had a job, right? We were probably like, Ville's older than us. So Ville had a job, and this was during the throwback jersey era. So Mitchell and Ness, like, was killing it, right? $300 jerseys. You know, this was early 2000s, Fab, Dipset, like
Yeah,
everybody, like
yeah.
Hove, like everybody had these
Mm-hmm.
fire jerseys. And I remember
Yeah.
Ville used to have like a collection. So, you know, I was inspired off of that. I was inspired off of that era. And I remember, again, like I didn't make the team, so I was only able to like participate in C-Town basketball just as a viewer. So I had my notebook. I used to draw all these jerseys and all of that. And I remember, like, I had drew a jersey like of all of my cousins, right? All the high schools that they went to, and I drew a jersey with like all like Charlestown, Hyde Park, Madison, like all of that. So I remember that I had that journal for a minute. I lost it when I was in Los Angeles. I wish I was able to show that just to be like, yo, see, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I had Charlestown. So when I ended up doing Charlestown I had Charlestown 2015. That for me, bro, it was like it was another full circle moment. But no, it was a dope experience. As I said, like our first program was Bryan High School, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when it changed. That's when the light switch like flipped, and I'm like, oh snap, B to B. So we did that, and that was my strategy of getting into the athletic field, and then getting into the school, and then being able to, you know, put the merch out to the students and stuff. So it was a dope experience, man. And you know, we do look forward to like getting back into the schools. And again, like, yo, it was dope, man. But yeah, the 2000 era, the Jersey era, like
That
that
was,
was my
yeah.
inspiration, bro. You know what I mean?
That it's crazy because when you just made like when you was repeating that, because you got to understand, like, I'm with Ville during that time. So that's,
Mm-hmm.
he worked at Hebrew at the time, the little
Yep.
facility there
Brookline.
in JP, like West Roxbury area. And we literally spent paychecks going to Manhattan's, going to Hip Zeppy, right? Because that's where we would go and get jerseys. I remember he had one of the illest jerseys I ever seen, which was the Tracy McGrady away jersey, the blue with the stars on it.
Oh
They
yeah,
don't
that
they
was
don't
fire.
play in that no more.
That was the
So when he
shiny
had
one too.
the shiny one, you feel me? So when he had the stars on the jersey and going to Hyde Park High, going all that, I remember I used to skip school, my school, to go to H. Pillar, go to Hyde Park and kick it with them. So, oh yeah, that era was crazy because that's what I think Jay-Z was one of the first dudes to come on the. I think it was the I love girls, 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 and he was
Yeah,
just in every scene he was switching out jerseys and like football, basketball. Yeah, oh my,
yeah.
man, that era was
So
ill
dope era.
because and music from a music perspective, because it come back full circle, Diplomats had a very big influence on how everybody dressed. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
The color schemes, the jersey with if you had a little
The
headband, your
bandana.
headband, the
Yeah.
hat,
Yeah.
the basketball hats, the coats, the jackets that had all the logos on there, like shit.
Yeah. It was a dope period. And again, like my time. like in LA was crazy because I got a chance to meet some of these like entertainers. I met the game. I gave him a jersey, and then we also had a jersey on Jewels. We had the Malcolm X
Yeah.
baseball jersey.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So
saying. You had the commercial for that.
yeah, and that was on VH1, Love and Hip Hop.
Yeah.
So
I thought y'all made it. I was like, oh, my niggas is out the game.
that was crazy, man. But yeah, no, it was dope, man. And I be thinking about this too. I'm like, yo, like I've definitely contributed to hip hop, and that's dope to me because I could point to like, yo, that's the game
That
had our
shit good.
joint,
Yeah.
Jewels had our joint, and
Yeah.
it's dope, man. Like that's why I did the work, man. So like when I think about where I'm at now, bro, like I'm not surprised because I've worked so hard and it took so long. And you know what I mean? Like that's why I'm just like I'm hella thankful, and like I said, I'm excited to see what's gonna come about next year.
Speaks volumes. So we definitely have to have a part 2. And the
Yo,
part
we
2,
definitely
just for
gotta
those,
do part two.
it's gonna be strictly neighborhood watch because there's some great things that I've been able to hear these last few days. Some great things coming from that. So the neighborhood watch, the watch parties, partnerships with different shoe companies. I want you to get into all that. And we're gonna have to do a part 2. We might have to do that part 2 live in person because I'm feeling the vibes on this camera.
Be dope. That would be
Yeah, we
dope,
might have to
dog.
do
Yeah.
part 2 live in HD. We might have to. I think I want to do that. But